This NFL Week 7 pregame show edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
And taking a shot to ground downfield. He makes the catch, and he gets in for the touchdown. The catch is made by Calvin Ridley. Wilson, good as he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Metcalf.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Here to get into NFL Week 7 official pregame show for the Propcast here. You guys know how we do it here. We'll go through every single game on the Sunday card, give you our player props. We'll put together our touchdown parlay for the Sunday games. And what else do we do? I think that's pretty much it. Give you our player props. Hopefully we can continue rolling here. Having a lot of success, with our player props this season thus far. So hopefully we can continue finding those winners for you guys. But joining me here to help me break everything down for this week in the NFL. You guys know him as a voice on the MLB Gambling Podcast and, of course, the NBA Gambling Podcast. Got my guy here with me. It's Lonte Smith. Lonte, what's going on, brother?
Doing pretty good, man. Good Sunday. It seems like the NFL year is flying by. We're already about halfway through. So, yeah, I'm hoping it slows down a little bit. But, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to Sunday. I always enjoy the show with you. So, hopefully we can get some winners.
Yeah, we're approaching week 7 and then obviously getting into week 8. So almost getting close to that 50% mark for the NFL season. So we enjoy these weeks while we can. But again, we're entering that sports equinox now with the NBA kicking off on Tuesday as well. So just a quick reminder, we are hosting a wins total contest over on the NBA Gambling Podcast in honor of the NBA season, tipping off on October 22nd. The winner gets a $200 SGPN gift card. Just head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA contest to enter today before the season starts. Again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA contest. I also want to take a quick second here to thank our listeners and our fans that tune in here to the Propcast. Without you guys, the show wouldn't be able to go on. But also, we do need your help. If you are available or do have Spotify, if you could do us a favor and head over to Spotify, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. That would be greatly appreciated, because we don't want corporate gambling taking over. Only you can help us in that fight. All right, Lonte, we got one game going on right now, my man. We've got the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New England Patriots across the pond there. Right now, the Jaguars have a 22-10 lead at halftime there. So obviously we won't give out any props from that game. But we'll kick it off here with a doozy here. NFC battle. House divided this week at SGPN headquarters. We got the Philadelphia Eagles. They're headed to MetLife Stadium to take on the New York Giants. Eagles currently laying 3 points in this game with a total of 42 here, Lonte. And we've got the return of Mr. Saquon Barkley to MetLife Stadium here to take on his former team, the Giants. But what are you looking at for player props in this game?
Yeah, I'm probably just going to look at some A.J. Brown stuff. I mean, obviously Saquon would be the easy target as far as player props. And I don't blame you. I mean, the Giants have struggled. Defensively, they've been better, but they've struggled with the dual threat backs. We saw Chase Brown rip off that long run. I thought the Bengals had ample opportunities to kind of, get Chase Brown more involved, and they just didn't do it. But I'm going to look at A.J. Brown over receiving yards. Is that at 71.5 still? Should be at 71.5.
Let's see here. Right now the number is sitting at 73.5 now.
Yeah, that's fine. I think he sees 80 plus. My rationale is, I mean, the Giants 27th DVOA versus wide receiver ones. We know this Eagles offense is, a ton better with A.J. Brown in the lineup, and we saw the 2 deep shots that Hurts through. It kind of opens up a lot of the run game and the pass game, the underneath pass game to Barkley. So I can kind of see why people like Saquon. But I mean, the Giants' best corner is a rookie, Drew Phillips, and he'll probably be in the slot. And we know AJ Brown is going to be on the outside more than likely. So I would look at AJ Brown to have a big day here. Deontay Banks is likely to be on him. Of course, he'll have some safety help over the top, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. So I like AJ Brown over 73.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, couldn't talk you off of that. I agree with that one as well. Seems like there's going to be at some point that these wide receivers for the Eagles are going to start looking like the receivers that we were used to seeing filling up the stat sheet, with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith here. I'm going to stick with what's worked for me in the first few weeks while this guy was out there. Malik Neighbors' longest reception over, I think the number's now 23.5. We know what he's able to do and what he is capable of doing. When he's out there on the field, he does make his return after missing the last several weeks with that concussion. So he's going to be a full go in this game. So I do expect him to be involved in this offense for the New York Giants. I'm just quickly trying to pull up his numbers if I can on those longest receptions here. Let's see. Let's go to the Giants stats. We'll go over to Malik Neighbors. All right. So for his 4 games that he's played this season, 25, 28, 28, and 39. So all 4 weeks he's gone over this number here right now, sitting at 23.5. You got anything else for your Giants and Eagles?
Yeah, I might look at Devin Singletary under rushing and receiving yards combined, just because he's coming back from an injury, but I think Tracy showed that he's more than capable of handling the workload, and I think he'll be more implemented than Singletary will be. So I'll look under on Singletary. That should be like 54.5 under receiving and rushing for Devin Singletary.
Let's see here. Devin Singletary number is sitting at 53.5 for this game. Definitely shop around, get the best number you may be able to find.
Yeah, I think you can find 54.5, like minus 120, minus 115-ish.
All right. Let's get over to the next game on the board. We'll go over to the Tennessee Titans. They are in Buffalo to take on the Bills here. Amari Cooper making his debut for the Buffalo Bills here. I have one player prop in this game here, Lonte. I'll quickly mention that. I have Tony Pollard on his receiving yards to go over in this game here. That number was at 23.5 earlier this week. And it is still sitting at, let's see here. Yeah, still at 23.5. The Buffalo Bills are allowing, I believe it's either the most or the second most receiving yards to the running back position. We saw last week for Breece Hall and also Braylon Allen. They both got over their receiving yard numbers. It's really been a theme for them. I think the only week a running back that did not get over their receiving yards prop against the Bills was in week 3 with Travis Etienne. He only had 17, but I think you and I talked about Justice Hill that week in week 4. He had 78 receiving yards. Daria Gumbawale for my Texans had 57. And last week, like I mentioned, Breece Hall had 56 for the New York Jets there. So that's the one I was looking at in this game, 23.5 over for Tony Pollard on his receiving yards.
Yeah, so I'm gonna look at a disgruntled receiver. Usually this little trend works out a lot. We saw Calvin Ridley get targeted a bunch, but no catches. So I'm gonna go over 38.5 receiving yards. 2 receptions for 14 yards in his last 3 games combined. The Bills struggle against wide receivers. They had 2 100. They allowed two 100-yard receivers last week. Collins and Diggs had 75 plus against them. Kirk had 79. So I'm thinking this might be a good spot. We're going to get Mason Rudolph, if I'm not mistaken, for Tennessee. So that I think that lifts up the floor for the passing game. Obviously, Levis was a turnover machine and couldn't get him the ball. So I think really we'll see a bunch of targets early on. And I think he'll be able to go over this number. So I like Calvin Ridley over 38.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, we saw him after it was a post game last week that he said he got all the targets in the 4th quarter, but he needs targets early on as well. And typically, when we do see that, they try to get those receivers involved early and often. And yeah, you're right. It will be Mason Rudolph, at least for the foreseeable future for this Tennessee Titans team, because Will Levis is dealing with a AC joint sprain in his, I believe, his shoulder, which will sideline him for at least 4 to 5 weeks or so they say, right? It'll be the Mason Rudolph show going forward, at least for the Titans. For probably the next, at least I think minimum 5 weeks here. All right, let's get over to the next game on the board here. This one's going to be a great one here. NFC North battle of the Detroit Lions. They are in Minnesota to take on the undefeated Vikings. Currently, as it stands, I believe they are now down to 1.5 point favorites in this game. Are down to 1 now for the Minnesota Vikings. Total, one of the higher ones on the board, 50.5. Anything you're looking at for Lions and Vikings?
Man, I wanted to take Justin Jefferson over, but I mean, he has killed Detroit, and Detroit's defensive backs, I mean, improving a little bit, but he's averaging like 124 yards against the Vikings. So what I did was I took him to lead the day, like just Sunday only in receiving yards. So you can find that. I'm not sure what the price is now. It's kind of fluctuating from book to book. All books don't offer it. But that's just something to look at if you can find it. But what I really like in this game is the other star wide receiver on the other side, Amon-Ra St. Brown, over 76.5 receiving yards. Vikings have struggled against slot wide receivers all year long. We saw Wilson have 13 for 101. We saw Diggs for your Texans have 10 for 94. Jaden Reed, 7 for 139. Debo, 8 for 110. He's had 104 and 144 last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown, against this defense. Byron Murphy, who's going to be probably the main corner in the slot, he's allowed over 80 yards in coverage versus slot receivers. And, you know, Minnesota's going to send a ton of blitzes. I think they're like a 40% blitz rate. And, I mean, I think it's going to be a middle of the field clinic for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, he's elite versus two high defenses, which is what Flores primarily runs. So I think Amon-Ra St. Brown has a big, big day. I would ladder him up all the way to 100 plus as well. If you want to take his catches, I don't mind that at all. I think he'll be able to kill underneath, getting open. And, yeah, I like him a lot here. I was leaning to Justin Jefferson. If you want to just take him, you know, as a flyer to go over 92.5, I think it was 92.5 still. I would look at that too, but I like Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot.
Jefferson last 3 games against the Lions, 223 on 11 catches, 141 on 6, 192 on 12 catches over the last 3 games here.
Unreal.
Yeah, I pivoted a little bit from the Viking side. I'd actually look at Jordan Addison to go over his number of 52.5. You know, I talked a lot about how the Lions have struggled against slot wide receivers. I believe Jordan Addison that's where he plays for this for this Vikings team. But again, this low-key turned into a little bit of a shootout here in this game. Lions, again, we know Aiden Hutchinson not being there for this defensive line of the Detroit Lions. Also, Marcus Davenport is out as well. So there's rumors about, you know, Max Crosby possibly coming over to the Detroit Lions and mortgaging their future to, you know, really solidify that defensive line and what Aiden Hutchinson, you know, leaves there. But I think that I'll continue fading the slot wide receivers. Every single week, the slot wide receiver has gone over their projection against the Detroit Lions. I'm not going to regurgitate all the names. If you listen to the Propcast, I talked about this at volumes. So I do like that. And then, Lonte, I'm going to go Jared Goff to throw interception here, man. The Vikings defense has 11 interceptions on the season thus far. And believe in 4 of the 5 games, they've intercepted the opposing quarterback multiple times. So only week they only had one, and I say only one, was against Brock Purdy in week 2 against the 49ers. But Daniel Jones, they picked off twice. They picked off CJ Stroud twice. They picked off, I believe that was Jordan Love's. Yeah, first game back, they picked him off 3 times. And then we saw in week 5, they picked off Aaron Rodgers 3 times as well. So Jared Goff to throw an interception here. I like that in this game. That was around minus 125 earlier this week. Let me see if it's still around minus 125 right now for Jared Goff. So those are the 2 I was looking at in this game. Got anything else for Lions and Vikings?
No, I think it's going to be a good game though.
Yeah, 100%, man. This looks like the books are expecting this one to be a close one, possibly maybe the final drive of the game here between the Lions and the Vikings. So a big one there. Well, we'll go over to what was or is going to be a glamorous Lions-Vikings NFC North matchup to probably a dud this week in the AFC North. Cincinnati Bengals, they are a 5.5-point favorite on the road here against the Cleveland Browns. Total is sitting at 41.5. I do see the return of Nick Chubb in this game here for the Cleveland Browns. Here, we'll see how effective he's going to be out there. But what are you looking at for player props if you have any for Bengals and Browns?
Man, I have absolutely nothing for this game. This is the disgusting game. I don't want to watch it. I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland's kind of live in this game. Cincinnati's been, a little bit. I don't know. They look at times like they've been getting right, but then other times they don't. But I mean, I just can't trust Watson and that offense. I mean, they got guy. I mean, obviously got rid of Cooper, so you're looking at Judy to be wide receiver 1. We know that's not a thing as we saw him in Denver. But yeah, I mean, Chubb coming back maybe kind of take some pressure off. But I mean, how much will he be able to give? I mean, that was a crazy injury. I mean, thankfully he's back and playing. I mean, that's a good sign. But I stayed away from this one, Munaf, man. Maybe I don't know if you can talk me into something that you like.
Yeah, I was looking at Deshaun Watson, either his attempts or his completions to go over, but it just makes me nervous because it's Deshaun Watson, right? And I think
Right.
I'm not like there's some hesitation for them to make the quarterback change to Jameis Winston and see what you can get out of him. But if you just purely look at the numbers of what quarterbacks are doing against the Bengals, I mean, I'm going to read these numbers off since week 3. So Jaden Daniels, 21 of 23, and these are completions and pass attempts. Andy Dalton, 25 for 40. Lamar Jackson, 26 for 42. And then last week, Daniel Jones, 22 of 41. So if you want to look at completions to go over or pass attempts to go over, but just because it is Deshaun Watson, and I'm not sure we're going to get out of Nick Chubb in this game, it gave me a little bit of hesitation there. So I stayed away from that. But that was the one I was considering in this game. Other than that, I really didn't have anything in this game. I'm not sure even the Bengals should be warranted as a 5.5-point road favorite in a division game, but also do you really want to trust Deshaun Watson and this Cleveland Browns team, to do anything offensively? So I pretty much left this one alone as well. But those are the Deshaun Watson was the only one I was considering in this game. Let's move along here to another pretty good game here. My Texans, they are in Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. Packers currently are a 3-point favorite with lower VIG around minus 102, plus 100, or you can get a minus 2.5 heavily juiced in, plus 2.5 heavily juiced, or sorry, I should say minus 2.5 in favor of the Packers heavily juiced, or a reduced juice on a 3 here. But total is sitting at 48 in this game here. Lonte, you got anything for Texans and Packers?
Yeah, I like a bunch in this game, man. We'll start off with Joe Mixon, like over 62.5 rushing yards. That should be at minus 120. Green Bay's rush defense allowed 100+ yard rushers in three of the last 5 games. Mixon's had 100+ in 2 of his last 3. He came back versus New England, who's had a solid run defense, 13 for 102. So he's not even getting a ton of carries, and he's still going over this. So I like him to get right here I like him to get right here for another big game. I don't know about 100, but maybe we'll see like 80, 85. And maybe he'll see more than 13 carries. I'm hoping he sees north of 15 carries here. And I mean, he looked like nothing has happened with that injury. So he looked good. I think he'll be able to exploit the Green Bay defense, rush defense. And I also like, Jordan Love, over 8.5 rushing yards. Houston's been elite versus the run. I mean, obviously, you know that. So running back ones have struggled versus them, but quarterback rushes have been really good. If you look at, they have 4 QBs who rushed for 35+ yards versus Houston. We saw I forgot who Drake May in his debut rushed for 30+ last week. So I think he will see Jordan Love take off a few. I mean, he can get this in one scramble. I believe the Texans play a lot of man and they mix in some zone here and there. But I think Jordan Love will be able to rip one off for 9-10 yards, and hopefully the sacks don't get us in the kneel down if your Texans going to victory. Last one I like is Tucker Kraft under 36.5 receiving yards. That should be at like minus 120ish. If you look at some of the tight ends that have performed against this Texans defense, I think we could say that the linebacking core is one of the better in the NFL as far as coverage wise. So Henry had 41 yards, but he had 1 catch for 30. So basically that's just, he had 1 outlier catch. Kincaid had 2 for 34. He had 1 catch for 20 yards. Strange 3 for 19. And they shut down Minnesota and Indianapolis tight ends. And Kmet had 4 for 27. So they fared really well outside of maybe 2 catches to get a bulk of the yards. But I think Tucker Kraft will be in for probably not a big day here against this Texans defense. So under 36.5 receiving yards for Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, I like the call on the Jordan Love over 8.5 rushing yards. I mean, you mentioned the numbers there. For the 6 quarterbacks they face, have had at least 35 or more rushing yards. Anthony Richardson, Caleb Williams, Josh Allen, and last week Drake May. The only 2 quarterbacks that didn't do anything or a whole heck of a lot was Trevor Lawrence, who even still finished up with 5 rushing yards, but then Sam Darnold didn't. He only had 1 attempt, but I think that was probably a kneel down there for him. Or, he hasn't really been that scrambler that we used to seeing in the past. But yeah, I do like that. I really didn't have much else. I kind of wait for Tank Dell to get back to Houston before I start backing him. I feel like he just is better at home for whatever reason. I don't think weather should be a huge factor in this game between the Texans and the Packers. But I do like the call on Joe Mixon. I think, like you mentioned, it really seems like he didn't really miss a beat after suffering that ankle injury. And coming back last week and still running for 102 rushing yards on 13 attempts, I should say. Also had two catching, 2 touchdowns, 1 catching, 1 rushing. So he's also going to be involved in that passing game there as well for the Texans. So if you want to look at his receiving yards to go over, I couldn't talk you off of that one as well. Let's move it along here to what the books are expecting to be another higher scoring game. NFC conference battle. The Seattle Seahawks, they're headed to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Currently, as this game stands right now, the Falcons are a 3-point favorite as well in this game. Same lines as the Texans and the Packers. Total is sitting at 51.5 in this game here. Lonte, anything for Seahawks and Falcons?
Yeah, man, I think this is going to be a really good game as well. High scoring, of course. But yeah, one of my favorite props of the day is going to be Kenneth Walker, over 23.5 receiving yards, open 21.5. So, the money's coming in on him a little bit. Grubb has used the running backs a lot. If you saw when Kenneth Walker was out, we saw Charbonnet get a bunch of targets as well. So he's using them at a high rate out of the backfield. Walker's had 5 receptions a game on 6 targets a game. Over the season, he's got 21 targets in his last 3. In those last 3, he's had 35 plus receiving yards, and we saw the Atlanta defense kind of be susceptible to dual threat running backs. Saquon Barkley had a good day. Alvin Kamara had a good day. Both were over 20.5 receiving yards easily versus this pass defense. I think Kenneth Walker can take advantage here, get a few checkdowns, and take them 10 or 11 yards. So I like that. I'm going to go to Kyle Pitts, man. I know we've had bad luck going with Kyle Pitts here. I'm going to go over 40.5 receiving yards, minus 115. Since he was catchless and targetless, and I think what is that, week 3? Week 2 or week 3?
Yeah.
He's had 10 receptions for 158 yards in his last 2 games, 14 targets in those 2 games. So he's seeing a lot of volume. And if you look at the tight end spot versus Seattle, Kittle 5 for 59, 2 touchdowns. Theo Johnson 5 for 48. Laporta 4 for 53. Hunter Henry 8 for 109. So the middle of the defense is a pretty good a good place for Kyle Pitts to be. As long as they line him up in the proper ways, I think he can be able to get over this number. So I like Kyle Pitts over 40.5 receiving yards. I'll sprinkle on him to score a touchdown. I think we'll touch on that a little bit later.
Yeah, I think the only tight ends that didn't have success against the Seahawks was week 1 with the Broncos tight end, which again I think they're more down the depth chart than some of the other guys that they have faced this season. You mentioned Hunter Henry, 8 for 109, combined between Julian Hill and John Smith, 42. Laporta, you mentioned, Theo Johnson, you mentioned, and then of course George Kittle last week. So yeah, I like this as well. This was on my list here as well for Kyle Pitts. In this game. And honestly, he's been a guy that could probably get this done in 1 catch, honestly, because it was a game against the Chiefs where he had a big catch down the field. Yep. And he had just got it done in 1 catch. I think the other one I was looking at was possibly Geno Smith on his rushing yards in this game. You take a look at opposing quarterbacks against the Falcons on the ground there. They are averaging 38 rushing yards per game. Also, if you want to look at his his pass attempts to go over in this game as well, I just think this is going to be a shootout, honestly, between these 2 teams. We've seen what the Falcons offense has been able to do now that Kirk Cousins has a couple of games under his belt, kind of getting that rust off from the injury and things like that, just building that rapport with his receivers and running back. So this should be a good game here. So Geno Smith over on his rushing yards, Geno Smith over on his pass attempts, and I 100% agree with Lonte about Kyle Pitts in this game for the Atlanta Falcons side. All right, let's move along here to the Miami Dolphins. They are in Indy to take on the Colts. Colts currently sitting as a 2.5-point favorite in this game with a total of 43.5 in this game. Lonte, you have anything that you like for Dolphins Colts?
Yeah, so I'll just box these both together. I like Tyreek Hill over 4.5 receptions. That should be at minus 120. Jalen Waddle over 3.5 receptions. A little bit juiced, minus 130. But if you want to buy that up to over 4 or 4 plus, or put it in a same game parlay, whatever, I think that's fine. But I'll lay to 130 with Jalen Waddle over 3.5 receptions and minus 120 over 4.5 receptions. If you look at it, I mean, Tyler Huntley's had a week. They've had a week off to kind of get better acclimated. Even without that, I mean, they're seeing targets. Tyreek Hill is seeing 16 targets over the past 2 weeks with Tyler Huntley. He even saw 5 targets with Thompson. If you look at Waddle, he saw 14 targets, and he's went over that number in every game in the last 3. 2 of those with Huntley, 1 of those with Thompson. Tyreek Hill is 6 receptions, 4 receptions, 3 receptions. But the 3 receptions was with Thompson. So I think, a week to scheme up, 2 weeks to scheme up some stuff. Huntley getting better acclimated into the offense. I think both of these receivers have big days. I'm going with the catches over yards because I think they'll see a lot of short stuff. Yeah, but I mean, Indianapolis has struggled badly versus wide receiver 1. So I wouldn't be surprised if either one has a big day through the air as far as receiving yards. But I'll stick with the receptions for both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, it seems like it could be a Devon Achane game here as well, just because, you and I, we've talked a lot about how the Colts rush defense has been really bad. They had 2 pretty good games against the Bears and the Steelers, but right back to being terrible. Tank Bigsby, week 5, 13 attempts for 101 yards. And then last week, Tony Pollard, 17 for 93. And now you have Devon Achane, who I know was battling the concussion, got cleared. I had a couple of weeks off there. So I think this Dolphins offense, I mean, this is going to be telling in how Coach McDaniels looks, because he was anointed as his, offensive genius. I know you don't have the quarterback there, but I think you having a week off, you got that opportunity to make those adjustments. One more note that I did see that they wanted to get Jonnu Smith involved here for the offense for the Miami Dolphins. We'll see if that comes into fruition here. If you want to take a look at his either his yardage or his receptions to go over, couldn't talk you off of that. I think the number was 2.5 for his reception, so not asking him to do a whole heck of a lot here. That 2.5 was at plus money as well. So if you're able to maybe find a 2, if you want to get that kind of quote unquote insurance for him, play a little bit. Maybe a little bit of juice on that. Or if you're like the same game parlay player books off of that, I think that would be a look here. That'll be something I keep my eye on what some of these coaches are saying and if it does really come into fruition here. But his receiving yards right now number is sitting at 18.5 at minus 125. So I think in 2 catches, Jonnu Smith is definitely capable of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get over to the 4:05 Eastern start time. So you got the Carolina Panthers. They are taking on the Commanders. Commanders sitting as a 9.5-point favorite in this game with another big total in this game. Lonte, 51.5. Man, anything for the Panthers and Commanders?
Yeah, I like a couple things. But actually, both quarterbacks. We'll go with Andy Dalton over 220.5 passing yards. He's throwing the 5th most passes in the league, 36 attempts per game. Washington's allowed 289 and 324 when QBs have had 30-plus attempts. So I think he'll see 30-plus attempts. Washington secondary is still bad. Jaden Daniels is like patching up a lot of their deficiencies that people, are not bringing to the light. But I think their pass defense has been really, really bad. And I think Dalton will be able to exploit that. Him, Deontay Johnson. They want to get the run game. Chuba Hubbard's been really good.
Yeah.
So I think they can get some balance there. I think Dalton can soar over this number, man. And we see a high total. I think it'll be a shootout. So I like him over 220.5 passing yards. And on the other side, we're going to go under 30.5 passing attempts for Jaden Daniels. He's under in 5 of his 6 games. If you look at opposing QBs versus Carolina, they're under in 5 of 6. And it's for the same reason that we talked about, I think, for the past 3 or 4 podcasts. I mean, teams have been able to run the ball a ton. So you're going to see a lot of Brian Robinson, which he should be back. You're going to see a lot of Austin Eckler, maybe even the rookie McNichols. Or not, maybe I think he's second year. I'm not sure. But I think you see a lot of run game, maybe even Jaden Daniels a lot in the run game as well. I just don't think he'll be able to – they'll put the ball in harm's way with Jaden Daniels dropping back to throw 30-plus times. So I'll go under 30.5 pass attempts for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I think that I think Brian Robinson Jr. is back this week.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but also, so I'll start out. Chuba Hubbard, you mentioned it. The Commanders' defensive line or rush defense, I should say, it's given up 5 yards per carry thus far this season. I think that's the 3rd most in the entire NFL through the first 7 weeks here, or I should say first 6 weeks. And Hubbard has been really, really good over the past several weeks here for the Carolina Panthers. So if you want to keep this defense honest, you got to, make sure Chuba Hubbard does get involved here. Last 3 weeks, 104 rushing yards, 97 and 92. For the Carolina Panthers. Austin Eckler on his receiving yards, Lonte, I think he's gone over this number or his projection every single week to start the season here. 47 last week, 30, 22, 47, and 52. So I think that, again, if they continue utilizing Austin Eckler to that passing game, I think that there's an opportunity for him to get over his receiving yards. That number right now for Austin Eckler is sitting at, let's see here. And I hate the way they've changed their layout here, but Eckler, I don't see his number listed right now in this game. Is he
I'm
even
looking for it
active
right
for the
now as
game?
well. I'm looking for it as well. I don't see him up here.
Yeah. All right. Well, keep an eye on that. Maybe it pops up before the game time. But that was one I was looking at as well. I think that was pretty much it for this game. But I do like your call about Andy Dalton on the over passing yards. I feel like at some point they will be trailing by a touchdown plus. I think they'll be forced to throw the football here a little bit more to get over this number. All right. Let's get over to the LA Rams. They are hosting the Las Vegas Raiders in this game. No Cooper Kupp this week. There was reports that he was back in a limited fashion in practice, but I think they're going to give him another extra week here. But the Rams are a 7.5-point favorite in this game here, Lonte, with a total of 43. Post Devontae Adams era here. But anything you got for Raiders and Rams?
Yeah, I don't think they need Cooper Kupp this week. Kyron Williams should be able to run all over this defense, especially with no Max Crosby. Kyron Williams over 91.5. I took him also to lead the day in rushing. I think he has a monster day. You don't even want to have Stafford dropping back, 25, 30 times. Just get a ball to Kyron Williams and let him run wild. So I think Kyron Williams over 91.5 yards is a good play. I was looking for Alexander Madison's receiving yards, but I didn't see it listed. That's one of the things that I'm looking for. I know White is back, but I mean, he hasn't been. I mean, he's been disappointment for sure. Yeah. And I think Madison's been really good in the pass game. I think we saw him score. Did he score a touchdown last week, or was that a week prior?
I think he did because I know I started him one of the weeks because I did have Zamir White, not to pick him up, but I think it was either last week or the previous week. He found the end zone.
So I think he'll be more involved in the pass game, especially if they're from behind. But I think this will be a low scoring, real fast game. I think Kyron Williams runs wild. So I like Kyron Williams over 91.5. If you can find Alexander Madison receiving yards, I'll look at that over as long as it's not too high.
All right. Yeah, I really didn't have much for this game. Honestly, I didn't even look at it here. So we could move past this one. All right, we got the Super Bowl rematch happening in the Bay Area. The Kansas City Chiefs, they are catching 2 points in this game against the San Francisco 49ers. Total is sitting at 47 in this game here, Lonte. Anything you're looking at for Chiefs and Niners?
Yeah, I got two things I think they're correlated. I like Brandon Ayuk under 58.5 receiving yards. I like Deebo Samuel over 54.5. Just simple. I think that Trent McDuffie, who's one of the better corners in the NFL, is going to be shadowing Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk's had one breakout game, and I think that was without Deebo. It was basically on like 2 catches, I think. So he really wasn't dominant. And I think in the Super Bowl, he only had like 1 big catch as well. So Trent McDuffie's accustomed to guard him. They're going to run a ton of Deebo underneath. I don't know if Jordan Mason will be able to get the ground game going. I don't know how injured he is. I know he's good. They say he was good to go, but I mean, he didn't come back in that game. I mean, I know the game was pretty much in hand, but
yeah,
like he didn't come back in that game, so that's kind of worrisome. But again, as some people probably would say, I mean, the running back. I mean, me and you could probably run it back for Shanahan if he really wanted to. So. I'm looking at Deebo over 54.5 pass receiving yards and Brandon Ayuk under 58.5 receiving yards.
Who's behind Jordan Mason?
I don't know if it's Guerrero or Guerrero.
Oh yeah,
from Louisville
because he had that
was a monster
big
at Louisville.
run. Yeah,
he should have scored. He fucked everybody over.
Yeah. And then I think who ended up getting into the end zone at that point? Was it Kittle, I think, or was it? It was Kyle Juszczyk.
Yeah.
I got in. But yeah, I'm looking at George Kittle in this game. The Chiefs are allowing the most receiving yards to the tight end position, but a lot of that was front loaded because Isaiah Likely had a huge game for the Ravens in week 111, and then the Bengals trio of Mike Gesicki, Eric All, and Drew Sample combined to go 151 yards. I think that was a game where they didn't have T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase was kind of still upset about not locking up a long-term deal. But even Kyle Pitts, we talked about earlier, he had 59 receiving yards against the Chiefs. Will Disley got 24, and then last week, Juwan Johnson got over his number of 31. But George Kittle's been really good thus far this season. Him and Brock Purdy, ever since he took over as a starting quarterback, have really built that rapport. Last couple weeks here, for George Kittle, 76 receiving yards, 45 against the Patriots, 64 against the Cardinals, and then 58 last week against the Seattle Seahawks. He's also scored a touchdown, Lonte, in 4 straight weeks. Has George Kittle, and his official number right now for his receiving prop against the Chiefs in this game is going to be sitting at 54.5. So I do like the number there for George Kittle. On the Chiefs side, I think this is a game where we'll see on who is going to be emerging as that number one target. Like, we know it's Travis Kelce, but I mean, is it going to be like by committee? Do we look at Kareem Hunt receiving yards in this game here as well? I think that's a way to look in this game here for the Chiefs side of things. So really not much for Chiefs side, but I think George Kittle, I do like him to get over his number in this game here. You got anything else for Chiefs and Niners?
Nah, but I might look at Travis Kelce. Just depending on how things go for the rest of the day. I might throw a little something on him to have like 100 plus. He had a good Super Bowl against him.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt is sitting at 13.5 receiving yards. I don't hate that here, which I don't understand why this game is done on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. I really
got to watch fucking Rodgers and
God.
Russell Wilson on Sunday Night Football, but
Jesus.
It is what
Mr.
it is.
Unlimited.
Mr. Unlimited, he is back. All right, Sunday Night Football here, Jets and Steelers. Obviously, we got Davante Adams, who magically got cured from that hamstring injury by the trade this week, joining the New York Jets and his old pal Aaron Rodgers there. Jets currently sitting as a 2-point favorite in this game with a total of 39, and not sure if George Pickens is in the doghouse for, giving away who was starting this game for the Steelers, because Coach Tomlin came out hour before that day, what I think was a Thursday or Wednesday, saying we're keeping it in house. And then George Pickens says, "Oh yeah, Russell Wilson making his first start this week, but we'll see what transpires here." But you got anything else for this game you like for Jets and Steelers?
I mean, obviously, I think I don't know if you want to call it square, but I think the most obvious play is just Davante Adams props, because he's going to get
muscle memory.
Targets. Yeah, it's just going to be peppered with targets. I'm going to look at on the other side. I'm looking at Calvin Austin over 12.5 receiving yards. Russell Wilson, obviously, I mean, we haven't seen him in a while, but the one thing that stayed consistent was his deep ball. I think Calvin Austin in the slot can catch a big bomb. Maybe I should just take his longest reception, but I think it's correlated pretty much. But I think he can get this with one catch. So I'll take Calvin Austin over 12.5 receiving yards. The Jets, they don't have, I mean, the Steelers, they don't have, I guess number one receiver would be, I guess, Sauce. He doesn't play number one receivers. He just plays the side, like the Richard Sherman, defensive scheme. So I think Calvin Austin will be away from everything, and I think he'll be able to catch one down the middle of the field for a big gain. So, Calvin Austin over 12.5 receiving yards. Maybe some Davante Adams stuff. I mean, I'll probably just sprinkle some of that stuff for fun, but nothing I wanted to give out that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, I think that Davante Adams, I mean, like you mentioned, right? It's just, I think either you want to go receptions or even if you want to go yardage. I mean, like I mentioned, it's just going to be muscle memory between those two guys. And I'm pretty sure that he was already, at Aaron Rodgers' home on Sunday night. After that, or Monday night was it, where they played against the Buffalo Bills. But Davante Adams, his reception starts sitting at 4.5. It is juiced at -145, which kind of feel like, I mean, it's a wait and see approach for us, but they are going up against a pretty good defense here in the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think this kind of opens up the opportunity for Garrett Wilson, right? Because like those two guys are just going to get all the targets now going forward, and like the other guys on this team at the wide receiving group, at least, like I just don't think that it's just going to be there for those guys now, just because he knows he has Davante Adams on one side, he has Garrett Wilson on the other side, and you also have Breece Hall in the backfield there that he's also a pretty good pass catching back there as well. So, I mean, we'll look at the target distribution after this game here, Lonte, and maybe start looking at some unders for the other guys there, where the market probably hasn't caught up to them. But I do like Davante Adams over 4.5 receptions. Russell Wilson to throw an interception, man. It's at even money. Like, it's his first start. You're going up against a pretty good defense here in the New York Jets. I think that number, if he does throw an interception this week, next week is going to be at a minus price for Mr. Unlimited there. So Those are the two I'll give out for Sunday Night Football here to wrap up the Week 7 Sunday card here. We got some time here. You have anything for the Monday Night Football games you want to give out? Ravens Bucks is the first start. I think the one I was looking at here, I'll quickly mention this. It's either going to be Zay Flowers over on his receiving yards. With Vita Vea being back, we know how good the Bucks defense or rush defense can be. But it's good. This is gonna be a clash of the Titans here with Derrick Henry going up against that defensive line. I don't think Mike Evans is gonna play here. He's dealing with that hamstring injury. But I think Cade Otton is probably going to be the pivot here. So I do like his over 37.5 for the Ravens and the Bucks game on Monday Night Football. But that was the two I was looking at. And then I really didn't have anything for Chargers and the Cardinals. Maybe if you look at J.K. Dobbins, rushing yards over, but I didn't have anything else.
Yeah, the Chargers is kind of tricky, man, because I said last week on the show I thought Justin Herbert would go under, and he goes out and he passes like the old Justin Herbert. So, I'm really don't know what to do with them. But Dobbins should have a good day. But again, the secondary for the Cardinals is not good. So, he could attack that secondary as well. We could see a lot of Ladd McConkey, a lot of Quentin Johnston. I'm staying off of that game. The other one, I don't know what to do with the backfield. We got Sean Tucker, you got Bucky Irving, you got Rashad White coming back. So that's really, troublesome. I don't really want to stay. I want to stay away from that. Maybe Baker rushing yards. He's been crushing his rushing yards every week almost.
Yeah, you're right.
So, and we know the Ravens are going to have an aggressive defense. He's going to be without Mike Evans. So that's going to be, one less target that he has to, one less big target that he can go to. I think he'll be more reluctant to take off a run. So I'll look at Baker Mayfield's rushing yards over. Other than that, I haven't really dove deep into the Monday night games. I thought it was just pretty I didn't really see a ton of value when I was looking over the props.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield's at 13.5, 14.5, depending on your book on his rushing yards. Quickly just read off his numbers here before we get to our touchdown parlays here for the week. So past couple weeks here, 29, 42, 10, 34, 21. So he's gone over that 14.5 in 4 of the 6 games he's played thus far this season. The only game he didn't have a single recorded rushing yard was against the Denver Broncos back in week 3. But other than that, the attempts have been there for him. So I think that attempts will probably be at 3.5. That if you're able to find that for Baker Mayfield. Let's see here quickly if they have. Yeah, it's 3.5 at plus 150. I thought could get cute if you find 2.5 there, but all right. So that is the week 7 card here, Lonte. Let's get into our touchdown scores parlay for this week. Where are we going? What do you like?
Let's go. Let's start with a wide receiver. Let's go Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he has a big day.
All right. So Amon-Ra is sitting at plus 120 to find the end zone here.
Another obvious choice obviously would be the two obvious ones would be Barkley and Adams. I know those are the two okay, they're gonna try to get Barkley the ball to get in the end zone versus old team, and then Adams is gonna be killing. Rodgers is gonna be throwing the ball relentlessly at Adams to get in the end zone. So
I don't know. Adams, if he scores this week, Lonte, we're not gonna see a plus 160 ever again for him. So
I agree.
We won't throw him in there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Saquon's at -1. What was he at? -140.
Yeah,
his 2 touchdowns are at plus 425. So I really didn't want to.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I would toss in something on the plus 425 though.
On the 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, just personally, I would.
Let's see if we can find one more or 2 more. If not, I do think that they'll. I don't say force feed him, but make sure he's going to get involved against his former team. What else do we like here? Texans, Packers.
You like Addison, right? You like Addison?
Yeah. What's his number? Because I do think that he could take the top off.
He should be a good price.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, he's plus 205.
I think that's solid.
Let's throw him in there. This might get tricky because.
Do we dare go with Kyle Pitts to score a touchdown?
Kyle Pitts. Who they have? The Seattle this week?
Mm-hmm.
What's the number?
I'll tell you between. I like Kyle Pitts. I like George Kittle. Those are the two.
All right, let's
tight
go
ends.
Kittle because
Yeah,
he
okay.
scored in 4 straight weeks.
Yeah, and he has good success against that defense, that Kansas City defense.
All right, so let's do this. Let's throw in George Kittle plus 160, and then I wanna have Barkley in here. So let's go 2+ for Barkley. So I'll take out Jordan Addison.
That's cool.
And we'll put in Kittle, and then we'll go 2+ for Barkley because that'll give us some better odds. Yeah, there we go. All right, so for this week, it's going to be, and I just had there we go. All right, so we'll go 2+ TDs for Barkley. We'll go Kittle. We'll go Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then who was our last one here? We said
Kittle, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams.
Yeah. All right. There we go. So that's going to be our touchdown. Oh, let me put the odds in. I'll just round it down to 77-1. It's at plus 7707, but I'll just to make it easier. All right. So this is our touchdown parlay for week 7. 2+ touchdowns from Barkley, George Kittle, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Need to fix that. It's
all
B
good.
at the end.
Yeah, we know what it means.
And then we got Devontae Adams to find the end zone. That'll be our parlay this week. 77-1.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I think I like that. That's a pretty good group of guys there to find the end zone for us. Yes, all right. Anything else, Lonte? Anything else last minute before we go here? Let me see if there's any updated injury news or anything like that. Not really. But I think we pretty much covered it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I hit on everything that I've already bet. I'm trying to look and see if there's anything else that I didn't give out. Yeah, a lot of the stuff has moved. I mean, like it used to be. I mean, you know this obviously. It used to be like we didn't get player props till like Friday. Like now they're coming out like Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's and so it's a lot. I mean, obviously, depending on how what you're betting and all that, it's it'd be a 2 or 3 yards here. Like the Kenneth Walker thing was 21.5 when it opened, and now it's like 23.5, juice 24.5. So like that's a big difference. It might not seem like it, but that's a big difference. He can have 24 yards and catch a pass behind the line of scrimmage, 3-yard loss, and boom, you lose. You know what I'm saying? On the bad number. So
that's why we always say shop around and get the best number.
Yeah, for sure.
For these player props, again, it could be the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah, for sure.
Your player props there. So yeah, that's pretty much it here for this week 7.
Unless you want to talk about the Yankees.
You want to talk about Yankees? Yeah, go ahead, man. We got some time. They're headed to the World Series, man.
Nah, man.
When was the last time that happened?
Man, God knows. My grandfather is in heaven, smiling down, thanking all the gods, but for this, man. Yeah, but man, credit Soto. Soto's got to give him a blank check, man. Got to give him a blank check. Stanton, my God, he's been good too. But
the funny part is, like, people forget that he already has a World Series title
and played really well. That whole stretch, he played like the best player in the world at that time.
That's wild. And I think like what you mentioned, I think the success for the Yankees, like getting to the World Series, especially in this series, was Stanton. Like if Stanton didn't do what he did, like I think this was like what Yankee fans and like the front office was envisioning, when they maybe had like Judge and him together, but just having like, I think that if the Dodgers pull it off, like, man, it's like you got Soto, Judge, and Stanton on one side, and then you got Betts, Freeman and Ohtani on the other side, dude. It's obviously it's like a dream matchup for the MLB.
It is, because that series that you remember they played a 3-game set in Yankee Stadium a month before the season was up. That was like one of the more the highly viewed series in like a while, and that was during football season, college football, and this is just a regular season. Like I don't think it really meant much. I mean, I think the Yankees have pretty much. Well, I guess it was pretty much good for the Yankees because they were still fighting, tooth and nail with Baltimore. But yeah, man, it's gonna be a good one if kind of hoping that the Mets can kind of push into another game.
Yeah, so I don't think it's. I think what I read was that if both of those championship series were going to wrap up by Saturday, it would start on Tuesday. But I don't think now it's starting because obviously Dodgers still need to win one more, or if the Mets can come back and pull off the upset right now, and how we have a Subway series. But I think either way, like the MLB has their dream matchup set up, like Subway Series, Mets, Yankees, or it's going to be the two biggest markets with and star power with
Oh my
Dodgers
god.
and
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah,
so
it's gonna be insane. It's gonna be
yeah,
insane. That's gonna be insane. And then you got you got the Liberty,
the
gonna
Liberty
try to
and
finish it
Lynx
off
game
tonight.
5 tonight, right?
Yeah, man. That's New York fans are, unless you're a Mets fan, you got a lot of hope. Or a Giants fan like me. So,
Yeah, I mean, look, sports right now in New York is really it's really starting to buzz here. Obviously now with the Knicks starting on Tuesday as well, so
Oh
their
yeah.
roster already looks like
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
yeah, for
So
sure.
good times over there in if you are a New York fan. All right, yeah, so I mean a shameless plug here, but we'll be having our World Series preview is upcoming this week. It is officially going to start on Friday, game 1, Yankees, and we'll find out if it's Dodgers or Mets. And of course, NBA season starting here as well on the 22nd on Tuesday. So it'll be definitely busy times across not only the pods that we do, but across the Sports Gambling Podcast Network with the sports equinox going on with all these sports that are going right now. So appreciate everybody hanging out with us. If you haven't already subscribed to the Propcast YouTube channel, please go ahead and do so. And of course, all the other shows on the network, the guys are just, they're grinding, putting in the work, putting in the hours to put out all the free content that we do over on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. All right, enjoy the games here on Sunday. We got sports all day long, baseball at night, WNBA finals at night, Sunday night football at night. So I'm sure everybody will be glued to the TV for the next 12 or so hours, possibly even more
Yes, sir.
for the sports here today. You guys make sure to follow my guy Lonte over on the Twitter machine at XXLonteXX. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. Sean and Kramer, it's rivalry week for them, so make sure you guys get over there to the Sports Gambling Podcast pregame show. They'll be taking your calls via Discord, getting their DFS lineups in, last minute bets, first half parlay that Kramer puts together. Hopefully he does cash this week as well. And again, for first touchdown scores, I think they hit a big bomb. What was it, last week, the week prior, with 100 to 1?
I think it was a week prior.
Yeah, so the guys are cooking right now. So make sure you guys, I think Sean hit a 30 to 1 on Joe Burrow as well for last week there as well. So the guys they're in midseason form right now, where they're touchdown scores, or first touchdown scores, I should say. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week for week 8. Enjoy the games this week, and always remember to let it ride.